because you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So if you decide this is the time to text your Aunt Sally for 2.5 hours, great. You're going to get a text message for 2.5 hours with Aunt Sally. And that's great. But if you want to set goals, you got to put into it this time. Word vomit. So when I give exercises, just write everything, just pour it all out into your brain, onto the paper. It doesn't have to make sense. If you're more of a drawer, sometimes I don't even use words. Sometimes I will sketch pictures. Whatever way you think, put that down on paper. And then stay present. I do have breaks scheduled. So if you're getting restless, one, if you need to get up, go to the bathroom, get snacks, get a bag of Reese's because I mentioned it, go for it. If you, whatever, this is an adult learning situation, you do you, but I will also have scheduled breaks so we can take a pause. All right. But stay as present as you can. Try to put your phone on airplane or whatever is appropriate for you. Okay, here we go. Things to consider. Some of these things are super repetitive. That is by design. You need to repeat them so you get clearer and clearer what you want and what you don't want. So they will kind of look and feel the same. That's on purpose. Don't be married to anything. Things will change. You will change. Likely, like that first video I showed, you have goals from 2020 that you look back on, you're like, I was hilarious, you know? So things are going to change. Pandemics apparently are going to happen. Giant fires in California are going to erupt. Your goals will also change. The world will do crazy things. So let yourself write stuff down that may never come to fruition. Let yourself also be awe-inspired. If you are a religious person, let yourself be inspired by the God of your understanding. If you are not a religious person, let yourself be amazed by the law of entropy. Things will happen. So some of the things we discuss are deep. Sometimes doing these exercises can bring stuff up. Don't be afraid for the goal to be seeking help. I have had lots of goals around going to therapy, getting on medication, seeing a doctor. So those are also goals, seeing a financial planner. So it doesn't always have to be you reinventing the wheel. It can be you asking for help. And then, as I mentioned before, don't always make this about joy and pleasure. That's not sustainable. Really, a whole life is one where you embrace the whole spectrum of existing. All right, so the hedonic treadmill is something that I just learned about, and it makes so much sense. So when we set goals, we do want to set lofty goals. We're going to get to that, but we want to think about this phrase, when I blank, then I will be happy, because you are going to naturally, you've been programmed to think that's how we goal set. If I achieve this thing, then I will be happy. It has a name. It's called the hedonic treadmill. So we have a baseline of wellness that we establish, and then things will happen in our life. You know, here's like the birth of my children. Here's 2020. Here's, you know, the bag of Reese's. Here's 2020. So you have these things that happen in your life, right? But above all, you sort of plateau and you're always at this baseline of wellness or baseline of happiness or sustaining self. So just be aware that we're really wanting to set goals that help us or enable us to live fully every day. I included a picture of Kentucky's sinkhole map. I don't know if y'all have ever been to Mammoth Cave, but I took my kids to Mammoth Cave. This was hysterical, probably because my reaction was so terrifying. We went to Mammoth Cave and they're like showing us, you know, all the things. My dad is a long Corvette lover. And if y'all remember, the Corvette Museum went into the sinkhole. Yeah. So I'm in Kentucky. I'm like Mammoth Cave, like, oh, it's so fun. It's so great. We get up to this topography model and they're like, here are all the sinkholes in Kentucky and the ones you drive over when you're on 65 going south, which is how I get to my parents. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to die every time we drive. And I just started like low hum screaming and like packed my kids up, got in the car and drove as fast as I could to Alabama because I was freaking out. That is kind of like setting goals that are only to get you to happiness on top of your life. Okay. Your life is a sinkhole. Your goals you think will only bring you happiness are on top of the sinkhole. And eventually, okay. So just set goals. So if I haven't beaten this dead horse enough, set goals that make your whole life something fun, entertaining. All right, I'm done shouting. The elephant in the room is 2020. So we're going to dive right in. I have never done this on Zoom. So normally what I have is you guys turn to your neighbors and like fetch to each other. I'm Jewish. You didn't see that on my. Oh, I'm on a loop. So if you, I'm trying to think how to do this. Do you all know each other? Okay. Some of you are like, no. No, I don't know that person. Okay, here's what I'm gonna have you do, just for funsies, Let me see if I can figure this out. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. And I'm gonna put you in some breakout rooms. Okay, and there are 22 people here. I'm gonna put you in 11, so everybody's gonna have a buddy. And I don't know who you're gonna be with, so you might not know this person. This could be really awkward. Saddle up. This could be the moment where you're like, I have to go to the bathroom for a whole 10 minutes. It's really weird. It's like a time thing. You're both gonna take 5 minutes to just like unload. Okay, this is a safe space, but also if you're like, don't know that person, share appropriately. You're gonna get 5 minutes to just unload everything that is bothering you. Let me give you some context here. So it's not just like my Aunt Sally, which I'm going to pick on Aunt Sally for an hour. Talk about 2020. Talk about the things that broke your heart in 2020. Talk about the things that you are so ticked about. And, because politics were obviously a part of 2020, you are welcome to share those. Person listening, your job is not to respond, to reform, to have any opinions. You are there as a blank wall to listen and to shake your head. If you want to throw in a me too, that's great. But your job is not to judge them or anything like that. It's just to be a sounding board, and you then will get the same respect from your partner. Are we all good on that? So feel welcome to share what you feel comfortable sharing. Obviously, don't share anything you don't. And we're going to try this. Okay. So I've got you. I'm going to have you in there for 10 minutes. I'm going to let you be adults and govern the time, 5 minutes approximately per person. We're going to do it. Okay. I've never hit this button before. So good luck to you. See you on the other side. When I come back, there are only 5 people left who are like, opt out. All right. So 3, 2, 1, good luck bitching to each other. Go. Okay. Open all rooms. I don't know. Did it work? Doing that. Anyone want to take themselves off mute and share anything that they noticed? Something that like maybe you hadn't thought about or occurred in your brain? Okay. We'll keep going. So kind of in line with that, if you did that more in the vein of 2020, that was what I shared. So it's totally great. If you want to add to your list as I talk, we're going to keep moving along. Some things you could add are like daily complaints. Are there things that you constantly complain about, like your commute, or I recently found out that grapples are just apples dipped in Concord grape juice, which my mother-in-law buys my kids every time they go to her house. They're like $400 an apple. And I thought like it was some fancy hybrid. I was like, okay, I'll support strange agriculture. No, just people soaking an apple in Concord grape juice. I've never been more offended. It was the top thing on my list. What is going on? Clearly I have feelings about this. So anything that like is just constantly coming up, I could input any one of my husband's habits that I bring up daily to him that I'm trying to reform him on, which we're going to talk about later, that you can't set goals about other people. And so I'm still learning that lesson. But write it down if it pisses you off. So yeah, anything that maybe, you didn't mention, but it's on the fringe, constantly think about, put that up. And then touchy one that I'm not going to spend too much time on, because honestly, it's a great thing for you and your therapist to discuss. But lifelong grudges. So things that just constantly come up for you, maybe that boyfriend from 9th grade who gave you that teddy bear with expired Godiva chocolate attached to it, the one, and you never told him you loved him. And you got to call him. You got to let him know. That could be something you write down, and honestly, just call him. He probably doesn't remember you, no offense. Or he's been waiting for this phone call his whole life. You never know what's going to unlock there. So a job that didn't work out, maybe a friendship that fell apart, also things to consider, because we process things, hold on to things. I think the movie I mentioned earlier is a great example. We never know what's lingering in the back of our minds. We never know what is maybe compelling us to do things because we're holding on to something from our past. So all of this is just so you can start to lay out a list of things that aren't sitting well with you. All of those things could be goals. All of those things can be turned into things that you get passionate about and you work on in your life. So write out any of that. And now I want you to consider the good stuff, the highlights. What are some daily pleasures? We put in a bird feeder outside our window during 2020, and it honestly is one of the greatest joys of my day. Just to watch a goldfinch, like wait for a goldfinch to come to my window. How weird? I love it. If you have children, if you have grandchildren, if you have a cat, whatever, what are some things? Maybe you're like me and you get the newspaper still, like, opening the newspaper, or I don't know, whatever it is. What are some things? Make a list of things that bring you a lot of joy. I'm going to talk while you write. So I'm going to give you guys about 2 minutes to do joyful things. 2 minutes is less than 5 minutes. And you're probably wondering, well, why is that? Because we are programmed to focus on the negative, because that's what keeps us alive. So, from threat, you remember the bear charging you more than you remember the smell of the flower that you found in that nice little field that time, because the bear charging you was a threat against your existence. The flower in the field was nice, but it doesn't keep you alive. Does this make sense? So we're operating, our operating system, the human operating system needs a major update from fight, flight, or freeze, but we haven't gotten that sent in yet. So we tend to cling to the things that are negative, and we sort of forget a lot of the joyful things, or we skew the memories of both. So I give you a short amount of time with the joy because you probably have a shorter list, and that's not because you're a Grinch. That's because you're programmed like that. Well, I'm actually out of things to say, so I'm just gonna sit here. 50 more seconds. I hope you're playing a playlist, not just listening to me exhale loudly. Or also you can listen to that. 10 more seconds. Oh. Okay, 3, 2, 1. At the very end of your list, I want you to write down your top 3 guilty pleasures. Go. Just write them down. If you were shameful to put them right now. One of mine is watching American Housewife. I don't know if y'all watch that show, but I am addicted and it brings me a lot of joy. Top 3 guilty pleasures. Those also can be part of your goals because if they bring you joy, why not? All right, so after you've completed your top 3 guilty pleasures, a year in review, I want you to just think about all the things we've just processed. What is the last year? You can also zoom out of the context, but since we don't have limited time, due to the time that we have, we can't go through your last 40 years, you know? So think about the last year, think about what you shared with your partner, think about what you wrote down, acknowledge what you're stuck on, acknowledge what brings you joy. You just want to review all of that because I love this quote. History doesn't always repeat itself. Often it just rhymes. And the better we get at reviewing our past, the better we can start to write a clearer future. So I am, if you've ever done Strength Finders, my #1 strength is history or histrionic, or I don't know, something like that. It's like, I cannot move forward without reviewing the past. So this makes a lot of sense to me. It might not for you, but you know, we can improve our future by looking at what we've done before. So think about all that. That might be more writing. That might just be reviewing what you've already written down. And then we're going to break that into very tangible things. So this should be on your sheet. And I want you to write down things that you acquired in the last year. Again, if you want to change the time frame, if you want to look at this over the last 2 years, maybe 2020 was that bad, you need to review from 2019. You're going to write down things you've gained, experiences you've gained, and ways of being. You could also put in things you lost that maybe were on purpose. So for example, experiences, I stopped dyeing my hair. That was a big deal. This is au naturel. Also haven't brushed it, so it's all natural. So experiences are like learning to live with my natural hair. And that's something I kind of technically lost, not gained, right? So break your stuff out further. Again, repetitive. I know you're like, we just did this. But just make it list worthy. What are things, experiences, and ways of being you had gained or intentionally lost in the last year, or insert time frame you're interested in? I'm going to give you about 1 minute and 30 seconds here to just spitball. You should have all this in your brain since we already just did complaints and loves together. Oh, ways of being, great question, Steve. Ways of being are like, did you become more mindful? You know, like if you started a meditation practice, maybe that was the experience, and a way of being is I have become more mindful, or maybe you've become more altruistic, done more acts of kindness. It could be an emotion. I've become more joyful. I've become more boring. I don't know. That would be one of mine. I've become more boring. I'm bird watching. I think it's going downhill. I'm just kidding. I really love bird watching. Don't care. Does that make sense, Steve? Ways of being. All right. Is there anything you need to mourn? So maybe on the back of that or under that, is there anything that didn't happen, couldn't happen, that you need to, I'm Jewish. So Is there anything you need to sit Shiva with? You know, Stacey Abrams, when she lost the election in Georgia, she said that. I thought that was such a beautiful way to phrase that. She lost the election, she sat with her grief, and then she moved on and, you know, just crushed the game. So, is there anything that you brought up in your complaints, anything at all that you're like, you know, I do need to digest that? Because often when we go after goals with this thing kind of looming over us that we've never let go of, it's just going to keep showing up. It's just going to keep placing itself on your path until you deal with it. What you resist persists is what one of my teachers says. And I have found that to be desperately true. So just write that down. There may be no action on it, but maybe you just need to be aware of it. Okay, we're almost to a break. A swir. So patterns, when we look at all these things, when we look at everything that we've written down, what are some patterns that you see emerging? So one that my husband and I observed last year was that a lot of my anger, grief complaints stemmed from my cell phone use. I was constantly on my phone. I was on my phone at dinner. I was on my phone when I was with my kids. I felt super irritated when I was with my family because I constantly wanted to check my email or my Instagram or whatever. And so 2020, one of my big a couple of my big goals were around cell phone use. And I read a book at the beginning of the year, which I highly recommend, from Cal Newport, called Digital Minimalism. I just took slow steps to really consider my usage of my phone, why I needed to use it, what I needed to do to change my relationship with it. So that's my example. My pattern was I was constantly on my phone. I complained a lot about that. So that ended up being a goal that I set around. But are there things you're noticing that you're doing that you want to keep? You know, maybe you've picked up the habit of reading this year, and maybe that's something you continue to do. You are what you repeatedly do. 2 years ago, I complained a lot that I didn't read enough and I felt stupid. That was my language. I felt like an idiot. And my husband, always in there for the lessons, was like, why don't you know, free knowledge, why don't you read more? Why don't you go to the library more? And I can now confidently say I am a reader. I read every night. I read 34 books this year. It was so fun. I have 50 on my goal list next year. So, and I love it, like totally love it. So much fun. What a nerd. So yeah, think about your patterns. What do you want to repeat? What do you want to change? Where are you seeing these patterns? When you can become aware of a pattern, you can either maintain it or change it. Last thing I want to bring up on that while you write, this is all writing time, is what thoughts drive your patterns? So I was anorexic in college. I went to school for dance. So it's like telltale dancer, classic. And the thought that perpetuated for me, so the pattern was, this is really gross, but the pattern was I ate 1 cup of applesauce and had a cup of coffee every day. That was my food source. For about a year. It was really healthy. Let me just tell you right now, it's not healthy. So that was my pattern. And I knew that was unhealthy because I was falling apart. My hair was falling out of my head and I weighed 95 pounds. And I started to notice that what would spur the pattern, what would cause me to do that, was I would pinch my stomach, which had nothing on it, and I would think I'm fat. And that was the thought that perpetuated the pattern, that perpetuated the problem. So if you have a pattern, positive or negative, that you're noticing, you want to notice what's the trigger for that, because that's actually the key to the pattern. If you can disrupt or maintain the trigger, you can keep the pattern. And we're going to talk about that in habits as well. But you want to be very conscious of those patterns. Let me look at my slides real quick. So I want to give you a break. Okay, so if we found any patterns as we talk about that, by the way, I have no filter and I'm like not sad about my eating disorder or anything like that. So if you're like, wow, that was personal, I have no filter. So if you found some patterns you're not proud of, here are my suggestions to you, because these are going to be things that will take a long time to unravel and to change. And you need to give yourself patience and time in order to change those patterns. So the first is meditate. And I know that's like a life hack that everybody gives. meditation in my world is not to attain a state of being, it's to become conscious of things, to become aware of things. Meditation is how I started to notice those negative thought patterns, how I started to notice I was perpetuating them around my hair. I would think that just moved from like anorexia to like obsession with what people thought of my physical appearance. And I started to think like all the time about what my hair was doing, what my skin was doing, that kind of thing. So meditation is a practice to bring you to consciousness, not to levitate. If you levitate, cool, take a video. Analyze your values, habits, and self-talk. Notice, what really matters to you. Is that something that really matters to you, or were you told that should matter to you? I love my parents, they're great people, but I grew up in a very vain South. And so a lot of the things that I was repeating were things that had been repeated to them. And I started to realize like, oh, these are patterns I need to deal with. My parents are great people and they're a product of their own conditioning. So just starting to cue into those things so you can disrupt your own patterns. And then another thing that I've seen on the internet is like people having a hair tie and slapping themselves. That is violence. I do not recommend that choice. Instead, you could take a hair tie or a rubber band, or if you have 2 pockets on your shirt and you want to do a pen in either pocket, live your life. But the hair tie for me is the easiest. And I just move it to the other wrist when I notice the pattern. So when I'm having the thought, I'm like, oh, I don't want to have that thought again. I just move the hair tie to my other wrist. It doesn't get the thought to go away. It just makes me conscious of it. So then the next time I start to notice it, I can disrupt it. And I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about applesauce again. I can be like, puppies. And I just think about puppies. Okay, so you've got to disrupt the pattern. And from there, your homework while we go on a little break, bathroom break, is can you distill the positive patterns into affirmations or things that you want to repeat to yourself regularly? One that we have at the yoga studio is I am enough. We say that as like our cornerstone mantra. I am enough. I am enough. And anytime you're trying to do a yoga pose and you're like, I suck, then it's I am enough, whatever you showed up with. So think about maybe ways you can turn patterns that you want to keep or add to your life as affirmations, and how can you start to repeat those often? Okay, that was just woo-woo enough that you're like, should I come back? Should I just leave forever? So here's a bathroom break, and here's one of my favorite videos ever. You've got 5 minutes to go to the bathroom, get some water, call your best friend, tell them how weird this is, but you're going to commit because you want people to know you stayed. Whatever it is, I support you. I'm going to play this video while you're gone, or you can just sit here and watch it. It's delightful. 5 minutes. Oh, you guys are saying, okay.
I think we all need a pep talk.
Y'all seen this?
The world needs to stop being boring. Yeah, boring is easy. Everybody can be boring, but you're gooder than that. Life is not a game, people. Life isn't a cereal either. Well, it is a cereal. And if life is a game, are we on the same team? I mean, really, right? I'm on your team, you're on my team. This is life, people. You got air coming through your nose. You got heartbeat. That means it's time to do something. A poem. 2 roads diverged in the woods, and I took the road less traveled. It hurt, man! Really bad. Rocks, thorns, and glass. My parts broke. Wah! Not cool, Robert Frost. But what if that were too fast? I won't be the one that leads to awesome. It's like that dude Jordan said, don't stop believing unless your dream's stupid. Maybe you should get a better dream. I think that's how it goes. Get a better dream and keep going. Keep going, and keep going. What Michael Jordan had quit? Well, he didn't quit. Oh, he retired. Yeah, yes, he retired. But before that, in high school, what if he quit when he didn't make the team? He would have never made Space Jam. And I love Space Jam. What will be your Space Jam? What will you create will make the world awesome? Nothing if you keep sitting there. That's why I'm talking to you today. This is your time. This is my time. It's our time. We can make every day better for each other. If If we're all on the same team, let's start acting like it. We got work to do. We can cry about it. Oh, we can dance about it. We were made to be awesome. Let's get it out there. I know everything. I'm just a kid. I'm doing all this. So everybody's good to dance the world and reason to dance. So get to it. You just get a pep talk. Create something that will make the world awesome. Play ball.
I love that film. All right, y'all, just a little bit longer. Any questions? If those of you that are here, not in the bathroom, not getting snacks, anyone have any questions about the exercises so far? Full transparency, I get so self-conscious every time I do this. I'm like, do they just think I'm a psycho? Which is actually fine if you think I'm a psycho, but I hope that the main point is this, are you like getting it? You shouldn't have set a goal yet, but does it make sense? Any questions? Thanks, Rosie. Thanks for fangirling me. Be the hype queen. Silva, Lynn, your kids are so cute. I'm assuming they're your critters, but man, they're cute. All right. We'll wait. We've got a whole minute and 22 seconds. I'm going to review my slides, make sure I don't say anything totally embarrassing. Oh, yeah. All right. And we're back. Oh, man. Hello and welcome back. Okay, so any questions before we launch into the next portion? Any questions on the first set of exercises, which is all past related? So we're just getting clear-ish on our past in order to move into the present, which this next segment is all about the present, and then we'll move into goal setting in the future. So any questions up to this point? This next section's shorter, much shorter, right? Because you've lived how many ever years up till this point. So the past is a lot to uncover in an hour, but then the present is just moment to moment, so a little shorter. Okay, well, I'm gonna go for it. If you have any questions during this time, you just holler. So here we go. Where'd my screen go? Oh, that's not it. I hope I didn't delete it. Great, no big deal. Freaking out. Let's look back into my email. Did I have anything interesting happen? Read some emails with me. I probably should not let you read my emails. I'm sure an HR person would tell me not to let you do that. But I just need to get to my slides. Okay, we're almost there. This is riveting. I know. Don't be so impressed by me. Here we go. I could just stop sharing, but you know, at this point, it's like we're here. We've shared so much. Okay. I'll tell you what, when 2020 is over, I never want to see Zoom again. I want to see you again, but I don't want to see Zoom again because she has hurt my feelings a lot. We've had an explosive relationship. Okay, present. Here we are. We've arrived. Okay, so now that we've looked at our patterns, we've got to talk about abundance versus scarcity mindset. So Laureen Powell, who was Steve Jobs' wife, she, if you've ever read the book about him, it's super fascinating. And I do think there's a lot to be learned from Steve Jobs and just his tenacity. And she said about him, he shaped how I came to view the world. It is hard enough to remove the many impediments for a clear view of reality, but Steve's gift was even greater. He saw clearly what was not there, what could be there, what had to be there. His mind was never a captive of reality, quite the contrary. He imagined what reality lacked and set out to remedy it. I share that quote every year because it is so important for us to try to set goals beyond our limiting beliefs of what we think is possible. And so the reason we start with your past is kind of obvious, but also I'll give an example. I grew up in the South. I grew up in Alabama, and where I grew up, everyone has like 4 to 5 kids. It's just what you do. And so for a long time, that was kind of my assumed conditioning of like what success equals 4 to 5 kids by the age of 30. And I carried that around for a long time. And when I had my first child at 30, I thought like I was a giant failure because I hadn't had 3 more prior to her, right? And so I carried that around as the story. And it became clear to me that that was just me operating out of an old thought pattern or somebody else's conditioning, somebody else's story. And it was very scarcity mindset based. And I now have 2 children, likely won't have any more children. And I just have switched my mindset to thinking like how lucky I am to have these 2 hilarious little critters. And I don't want any more because they're nuts. And I'm just enjoying the heck out of them. And I don't need more children. And so that's not to impart on you anything about children, because I know that can be very personal, but that is to impart that it was a change of mindset. And it's really about how we change our mindset and also envision a life that's different than the one that's just been presented to us, that's going to offer us really rich and exciting goals. Love Muhammad Ali's impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. So I want you to challenge yourself as we move into the goal setting segment to look beyond what you've always assumed is possible, or if you've thought like, oh, I would love to do that, but that's a goal. Whatever you think, I would love for blank, but that's probably a goal. Again, be cautious of, will it then make you happy and be the only thing? Then you want to be conscious of that. But would the journey of that be exciting? Then you might have just hit on some gold there. Are there any limiting beliefs in your hyphenated business card self? So did you write stuff down? And as you wrote it down in the back of your mind, you're like, well, I wish it were this, but that'll never happen. Those are things to cue into. I myself was fangirling actually over Jamie because she said she has an environmental degree, which is like the coolest thing ever. I went to a conservatory. So often my limiting belief is I'm an idiot, I'm stupid, I've said that earlier, and that I couldn't do something like that. And so I've had to rewrite that I can go back to school, I can become an environmental scientist, I can do that at 40. I can do that at 50. There's no limitation there. So I think just being conscious of when your brain tells you, no, that's not possible for you, to really look at that, because there's probably something really interesting there. And then it's about changing your mindset. So that comes into what's called limiting beliefs. Looking at your list of complaints, your hyphenated list, maybe some of the patterns you brought up, and noticing if any of them are framed as a limiting belief. So we'll take mine, for example. I could never be an environmental scientist would be a limiting belief. And the liberating truth, which we're going to talk about in a second, is I am absolutely capable of becoming an environmental scientist. So before you can even set goals, you have to change your mind about it. Because if you're coming at it from a place of lack, that's what you're going to get out of it, is a pretty lacking experience of that thing. So I want you to take out, I think this is in your handout, there should be one side that says limiting beliefs and liberating truths. Is this correct? So once you start to, thank you, once you start to think through what are some of the limiting beliefs that are starting to show up, and I should mention that this might be something that you do over the holiday break, because these might not be at the forefront of your consciousness. Like you've been wearing those limiting beliefs around for a while. So it might be something that you just need to sit with, but write out a few that you've started to notice in these exercises, or maybe one you're very present with. Just give you just a little moment here to do it. And so once you write those out, sit with them. This is definitely one to keep returning to, because this will change how you goal set. This will change what you think you're capable of, what you write down. So be in process with these. So on the right hand side, you're going to start to think, okay, if my limiting belief is I'm not smart enough to be an environmental scientist, then the liberating truth is I'm absolutely smart enough to be an environmental scientist. These might not feel honest at first. Even as I say that, I kind of like chuckle in the back of my mind, like I've taken like one math class in 20 years, so it's gonna be rough. But I can do it. So it might feel a little disingenuous to write down the opposite. So you might have to write something that feels a little bit more genuine. You might just straight up write out what it is that's the opposite of it and just start to repeat it to yourself. You know, we're learning so much nowadays about things like representation in media. You know, until somebody sees somebody that looks like them or they hear something that affirms them, it's hard to imagine it as possible, right? So my mom just bought my daughter the Jewish American Girl doll, which I was like, okay, that's extreme. But you know, my daughter now sees herself in an American Girl doll. There's a Rebecca, which she renamed to Rosie. Thought you'd love that. So, you know, she sees herself in this doll, and that's totally changed her perception because, full disclosure, my daughter is like borderline anti-Semitic and says some things. And I'm like, whoa. And she goes to a Jewish school. So I'm like, how'd we learn that? But having a doll that represents who she is has made her so very proud of it. So if you change your language, if you represent yourself, if you start to show up in that way, you're going to start to assimilate to those things better and faster and believe them more. I just called my 5-year-old an anti-Semitic being on a recorded video. Okay, let's send that to her at her wedding. Hope it's like really Jewish. All right. So that's liberating beliefs versus limiting beliefs versus liberating truths. So the most important thing we're going to go over today, beyond your goals, beyond anything, are your values. Greatest compliment I've received in my life is someone said, you live so far into your integrity, it's like hard to stand. They didn't mean it nicely, but I loved it. Your values are everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. It's how you show up in the world. So what are values? I used to make the joke that values are what we do when the world is apocalyptic, and we still do them. We just lived through an apocalypse. So you probably have a better glimpse this year of what your values are than any time before. You know, we own a gym. So the people that value fitness, come hell or high water, have shown up at the gym. They've got like 19 masks on. They're wearing like a face shield. They're in a hazmat suit and like, give me the weights. You know what? Those people value fitness because they've shown up, right? Despite everything. I built the most epic front yard garden I can imagine because I value sustainability in the environment. It's very clear because I put my time and energy into that. So you're going to write out a list of your values. And I want you to really critically think, what are they really? Not, you know, there's like Marshall's has made $1 billion off of those signs that are like family, faith, and laughter. And it's got like a cheesy cup of coffee underneath it for some reason. Oh, and you value coffee. So, if you have things like that in your house, don't worry, I have like 40 of them. Mama loves an affirmation. But like you haven't talked to your family in 10 years, that might not be a value. It might be really nice for you to have bought that from Marshall's, but it's probably not a value. These things don't have to be set in stone though. So let's say you write family as a value, but you haven't seen your family in 10 years. You could change that. That could be part of your goals. Let's say you haven't seen your family in 10 years and you really don't care to see them. Maybe that's not a value, and that's also okay. So writing out your 5, maybe 3 to 5 values in life and really distilling them down. So this is different than your hyphenated list of like who you are. This is like come hell or high water. This is what I put my energy into. This is how I show up in the world, because you can do it all, just not all at once. So your values are going to dictate what goals you set, how you live in and out of integrity, how you feel about that. So once you set your values, or once you write down your values, this should be on your sheet too. You're going to draw a line, or it should have a line in the center of the page that says above the line, below the line. And you get to choose names for this one. This is fun. Rosie, is it there? Did you find it? Okay. So above the line is when you are living in your values, when you are living in high integrity with yourself. Who are you? What does that look like? Do you wake up early? Do you sleep in? Do you eat tacos? Are you an intermittent faster? That's my husband's thing. I'm like, you just don't eat? I did that for years. So whatever it is, above the line, below the line. So above the line is your best self. My name is Shannon, so I'm above the line. My husband on our 3rd date called me Stephanie, introduced me as Stephanie. And because I'm an absolute ass, I went with it the whole night. So my below the line self is Stephanie. And so when I am just like out of integrity, she's hitting the bottle hard. She's watching shows that she shouldn't be watching because they taint her mind. Below the line shows up. Stephanie arrives at the party. She's very scary. She gossips. I don't like to gossip about people, but when I'm Stephanie, all bets are off. Okay, so who is your below the line self? Who is your above the line self? Distinguish between it. Value-based self, Shannon. Hell side, Stephanie. Write it out, because then you can start to call yourself on it. And let me tell you, yeah.
Does anyone else have like an actual name they refer to as their worst alter ego?
Gigi, what's yours?
Gigi, come on, share it. We know you have one.
Peaches. It's Peaches.
Peaches.
Peaches is fun.
Oh my God, I love Peaches. Can Stephanie and Peaches hang out?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm so in.
Honestly, mine is Stephanie.
Yes.
Because I hate going by Stephanie.
That's amazing. Mine is Mary.
Oh, is that your full name?
My full name is Rosemary.
Sylvia. So good.
Hey,
Anybody else?
hey. So, can I ask a question about this exercise? I didn't know this was
Sure.
a thing. I've got a friend whose name is Becca, but whenever she's drunk, we call her Rebecca. But like, I don't understand the exercise. Like, am I just making up an alternate name? Like, what?
I love you, Steve. I would like for you to make up an alter ego now. Because I'm no. So the exercise is figuring out who you are when you're living in integrity and who you are when you aren't. So this is actually a great activity to post if you have roommates or partners, so that they can actually call you out on it. So you're writing, think about a time in your life when you were your Tristan. I just saw Brent's Tristan, I'm dead. Think about a time in your life where you felt super in alignment, like you were hitting all your goals, or you just felt really good about yourself, or you felt really whole. What were things in your life, practices, ways of being, thoughts, all experiences, things like that were happening when you were above the line, when you were living in that way? And then what are things that happen when you are maybe not so great? Does this make sense? Does that explain it, Steve, kind of? Just like word vomit, just for above the line word vomit when you like yourself, below the line word vomit when you don't like yourself. and like activities, you know, like above the line is 1 glass of wine for me. Below the line is the bottle. Does this make sense? Above the line is 1 Reese's. Below the line is the bag. Actually, reverse that. The bag, the 1. Who eats 1? It's so annoying. Self-control, not here for it. Steve and Drunk Steve. Correct. That's exactly it. Yes. Tristan. I think Tristan just gets me every time. Yes. Yes, I married my husband. He called me Stephanie. And don't worry, I bring it up every day. Every day. I am the worst to be married to. Sure, you couldn't have picked that yet. Okay, so above the line, below the line. Why does that matter? Because when you're in the pursuit of your goals, when you're in the pursuit of living a full, whole life, you're going to be able to tell quickly when you're in the zone of like wholeness and when you're in the zone of like dark shadow self. I don't know if y'all remember the show Wife Swap, but there was an episode with a woman who she swaps with a woman named Jade, and she calls her dork satted, and she's just so Southern, and she sounds like 12 people I'm related to, and she keeps yelling dork satted, and that is Stephanie. She's dork satted. So anyway, where was I? Okay, elevators and demoters. So now that you've thought about who am I when I'm at my best, who am I when I'm at my worst, Steve and Drunk Steve, Shannon and Stephanie, you're going to start to think about, okay, who influences that? So one thing we never want to do is set goals for other people. We never want to say like, I take my staff on a trip to Tahiti. Because when I'm thinking about, I also read Dementors, which is why I have the picture of Dementors, LOL. When I think about taking my whole staff to Tahiti, I think of specific people, my 12 yoga teacher staff, right? I have no control over whether they stay employees or not, right? They might move. They might hate my guts. They might decide they don't want to be a yoga teacher and they'd rather build furniture. So I have no control over them, but I could write, you know, I take a trip to Tahiti. And maybe in my mind, I include them, maybe I don't, or take a staff trip, or I make it in a way that's not dependent on those people, maybe a general group, but you want to be careful not to make goals about other people because you don't have any control over other people. So it's an important distinction, and we don't live in a vacuum. So you are influenced by other people. So your elevators are people that elevate your life. They're people who make you better. I've got Oprah here because Lord knows she makes me better. And then I've got Dementors because Demoters looks like Dementors and they make you worse. And if they make you better, then you're that blonde kid. And nobody likes him. He poops on every party in Harry Potter. Nobody likes him. So just take a quick audit of your life. This is not time for you to like call your Aunt Sally once again, be like, you're out, I've cut you off the island, get away. But it is time to just take a little look at, okay, do I spend a lot of time with Aunt Sally? And every time I want to read a book and I've said like, this is my goal, Aunt Sally's like, do you really want to read the book? You know, maybe we shouldn't spend time with Aunt Sally when we want to read the book. Does that make sense? So you just want to get clear on like, who is elevating you? Who is bringing you down? I'm not saying cut people out of your life, but I am saying that maybe there are times and places for those people. Or you might need to cut them out of your life. Hot tip. And they could be fictional. Oh, I don't know Oprah. I know you probably saw that and you're like, she and Oprah are best friends. We're not. It'll happen, but we're not. But she elevates me. Whenever I listen to her podcast, I'm like a very happy person. And I go for my goals whenever I listen to, you know, Soul Sunday. Make sense? Should be a quick list. All right, mirrored behavior. So who in your life or people that you know of, famous people, do you want to emulate? Who are people that display, so going back to representation that we talked about earlier, who are people that are representing lives, ways of being, experiences that you want to emulate? I've got Chrissy Teigen because I think she's hilarious. I've got Paul Hawken because he's my favorite ecologist. I've got Oprah because why wouldn't I? And I've got Martha Stewart because she's best friends with Snoop Dogg and I love her. All right, so these are people I'm mirroring behavior from. Maybe not the prison part of Martha Stewart, but everything else. Maybe prison, I don't know. Her prison might have been really nice. So make a short list of people that you aspire to be like, you look up to, maybe they're mentors, maybe they're not. Maybe you know them, maybe you don't. Okay, so all of this should have felt very repetitive. By the way, if you do a vision board at the end of this, which we're not going to do together because people find them very strange and then other people like lose their minds over them. Your like, I always save people's Christmas cards and I will put people that I like super love. I put their pictures on my vision board. I want to, spend more time with those people. And I also put people, mirrored behavior people on my vision board as well. I have Martha Stewart on every single one I've ever done. And I've been doing vision boards for 12 years. So a lot of Martha Stewart. Okay, so what do you want? What don't you want? So all this has been very repetitive. I know. Thank you for hanging in with me. I know this is exhausting. Now you're going to put it all together and then we're going to be ready to set goals. We're going to take a 10-minute break and then do that thing. So there should be a circle page. Has a giant circle on it that I very proudly made with the draw function in Word. Inside the circle, you're going to put everything you want. So this is summarizing the whole shebang, going back to your joys, your complaints, all the way up to your mirrored behavior and your like who you want to be list. What do you want in your life? Do you want, perfectly manicured lawns, mature trees, I don't know, those cute twins that keep popping in and out of the video. I want them somehow to be in my world. Whatever it is, whatever you want, all the things. What do you want in your life? You want joy, you want a bottle of wine, you want a bag of Reese's, you want a Lamborghini, put it all in that circle. Everything you don't want, Stephanie's actually, she straddles the line because she can be fun. So Stephanie like runs in and out of the circle, but what do you not want? Hangovers. That'd be the first thing I'd put in that outside circle. Applesauce. I have an aversion to applesauce now, thanks to college. Whatever it is, whatever you've decided, like, yeah, that needs to go or stay out of my world, it goes on the outside of the circle. So for this, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. The timer will go off, and at that 5 minutes, then we're going to take a break. Okay, so go for it. 5 minutes to write what you want, what you don't want, and then we'll take a 5-minute break. So if you get done early, you can take a longer break, go to the bathroom, stretch your legs, call your Aunt Sally. Options. And if you've stayed this long, come back, because now we're going to do the thing. Oh, we've got chats. I should look into Devonshire for the mature trees. I have very immature trees in Kennedy King. I just planted a hardy fig, Chicago hardy fig. That's going to be epic. And Michigan peach trees, but not mature. Opposite of mature. I feel like I should move to Devonshire now. Kennedy King is seeming way too hip at this point. Oh no, don't play. About 2.5 more minutes and we'll have 5 minutes of a total break and I'll play yet another dumb video. Fun fact, my dearest friend is a costumer on SNL. So I don't actually like this video, but I know he did the costume, so shameless plug for Brian. Any questions? Hopefully so far you're getting a good idea of like where you're at. We've gone through the past, we're at the present. Now we're going to set goals, knowing what we want, what we don't want. That's what we're hoping to have arrived at in this moment. All right, about a minute left to complete that exercise and we'll take a break, water, bathroom. If you're already done, go ahead, take any break you need, grab some coffee. And then we'll culminate with the goal setting, the actual reason you're here. And you're like, thanks for this other weird hour and a half of my life gone. But it'll make sense, I think, I hope. Rosie's just being really nice to me, which I'll take. It's 2020. I'll take anyone being nice to me. You should too. You all look great. Your hair looks great. Your scarves look great. I put makeup on for you, which is really impressive. I think you could grind beans right now. I think you could do that. You have time. It's leisurely. We said mature, so let's say leisurely instead of leisurely. Leisure, at your leisure. All right, I'm gonna pause the recording. Whoever is watching this, if they're watching this, if they've gotten that far, I'm impressed. Zoom recording. Okay, so we are slimming our pool of humans down. This happens every time, no big deal. Rosie, don't fire me, I promise. It was not my bad jokes. Actually, it probably was exactly that. All right, so we're gonna dive into the actual goal setting and a couple of things to remember. I feel you on the children. I probably due to pick them up at some point. So a couple of things to remember about the goal setting itself is that we're not trying to set goals that answer the question, if I blank, then I will be happy. That is instantly problematic because once you get there, you're gonna slide right back down and be like, oh, I'm empty again, right? So it's about living a life that is full of things that interest you and keep you engaged and keep you feeling whole. You're never gonna have a perfect day. So I almost changed this slide because perfect day, I mean, I can think of maybe 3 in my life, right? There were like perfect days, but for the most part, you're gonna move through ups and downs, good days and bad days, but it is all about how you frame them. I feel like even though this year has been really challenging because I'm privileged to do this work every single year, I live in such a way that yes, I have bad days, but I love my life so much, I wouldn't change a single thing about it. So that's what we're getting towards. So that's what we're trying to get towards. So I want you to take a moment. We're going to go through a little visualization exercise. If you feel comfortable enough to close your eyes and to sit back, that's probably the best way to do this. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you can just kind of tuck your chin towards your chest and think, or maybe you're someone who journals while visualizing. So all of these are options, but find yourself in a way that you can just get comfortable and close your eyes. And we're going to think about 2 different days. So give yourself also the time and space to move through the distinctions of that. So I want you to first think about a perfect day. Let's think about something like a birthday, a wedding, a graduation, a day that you leave something, you let something go. I want you to think about an ideal day that maybe culminates around a big moment. What does that perfect day look like? Who is there? What are you celebrating, or what are you doing? How have you arrived to this point? What's the journey been to get here? Maybe part of that perfect day is remembering that. Maybe it's a vacation you're taking because you hit a sales goal, or you're celebrating something else with a vacation. So start to put yourself in that context. What would be a perfect day for you? And let's think about that a year from now. So a year from now, it's your perfect day. What are you doing? Who's there? Where are you? You have no other worries or obligations, just a day to enjoy the fullness of that day. And I want you to see and feel and touch and smell and taste everything associated with that. And just let yourself imagine and dream for a moment. Let your mind explore, notice any limiting beliefs, anything that says that's not possible. This is a dream. This is just a joyful dream. Take in the whole day, beginning, middle, end. What does it all look, feel, smell, taste, touch like? And hold that memory, hold that dream. You're going to write on it in a second. And like you're switching cameras, now think of an ideal day. This is not a vacation. This is not a celebration of a big point. This is an everyday ideal day. This is maybe in some people's lens would be a boring day, but for you, it's ideal. So what does this look like? What time do you get up? What do you do during the day? Who is around? Who do you spend time with? What is lunch like? What are your activities before and after lunch? What do you do for leisure? What do you do for fun? What do you do for your spirituality? What do you do for your cognition and your intellect? What do you do for work? Do you work? If so, how much? How much time do you spend in your leisure time? How much time do you spend in a spiritual practice or a physical practice? Maybe you like to work out. Maybe you like to go on walks or nature walks. Just think about your ideal day from top to bottom, sunrise to sunset. What does that whole day look like? What does bedtime look like? What are you going to eat for dinner? All of it. Let yourself be fully immersed in an ideal day. And then hold those 2 days next to each other, a perfect day, one that celebrates something, and an ideal day, one that is your standard operating process, but one that's full and whole and full of possibility itself. And take a deep breath in and a big breath out. Begin to slowly open your eyes. And we're going to begin with the perfect day. I'm going to give you 3 minutes per exercise. I want you to first write out that perfect day from beginning to end. What are you doing? What are you celebrating, or what has brought you to this perfect day? All right, so 3 minutes, again, great thing to use if you have one, is a playlist. I'll type one in the chat box that I really love for this kind of work, which is called Lush Lofi. Oh, I don't know, Steve. You can find that on Spotify. I love that one. So just take your time to write out your perfect day now. We've got 2.5 minutes left. my God, Steve, that's like the sweetest thing ever. Could you watch your video every day of getting married? We do that once a year. That is really joyful. That's really sweet. It's about a minute and 30 seconds left to write out your perfect day. I agree, that's so sweet. I was trying to give you guys this playlist, but I'm not a technological person. It's my internet. I'm now parsing together. Is Logan your offspring, Steve? Oh, thank you. Thank God for you. Because otherwise that playlist was never making it in there. It's gonna just keep bumbling around. It's about 30 more seconds to write out your perfect day. If you're already done, you can move on to your ideal day because that's the next segment. If you're like me, I'm a timetable person. I like to know, what are we doing at 9? What are we doing at 10? I've got it all written out. So I usually write my ideal day in literal time chunks. If that's not you, write in a narrative, write it out as a prose, give me a haiku. You're not actually giving it to me, but metaphorically speaking. Start to write out your ideal day, an everyday perfect day. 3 minutes begins now on your ideal day. If you've never heard Lush Lofi as a playlist, you're welcome. It's a gift. It's a gift from me to you. It's so good. 9 months. Oh my gosh, what a sweet age. Silva, is it Silva Lynn or is it one name, 2 names? Silva.
First and middle. So I mostly go by Silva, but some people call me Silva Lynn.
How old are your children? Are those your, I keep assuming.
They are like 32 months.
Oh my gosh, cute. So cute. Lost my thing again. So we're putting down our ideal day. Ideal day time. Oh my gosh, stop. That little onesie, get out of here. And she's in the splits. So she's a future student of mine, which I'm here for baby yoga. Oh my gosh. Look at that little face. That almost makes me want to go back to the 4-kid goal. Especially when I saw Sylvia year 2, I was like, I could do 4. Nope. Not today, Satan. Everybody else's kids are cute. And they're fine where they're at. But my God, your kids are so cute. Look at her face. My kids aren't that cute anymore. They're in that phase where it's like getting scary, I love them. They're awesome. Little terrors. All right, you got about 30 more seconds to write out your ideal day. We're doing great on time. We got this. And if you're already done, congratulations, because we're done in 10 seconds. So finish any last little Any moments, any things, any smells, any tastes in your perfect day or ideal day. Because now we're going to return to the values. Okay, so you wrote out your values earlier, and now we're going to bring that back in. So I want you to go back and look at the values you wrote out, 3 to 5 values, and I want you to notice if they are present in either of your visions or not. So this is important because if you wrote down family, I value family, but neither of your days have anything to do with your family, we need to assess that value or those goals. Something is not lining up. Does this make sense? So if you are setting goals that are out of integrity of your values, or you are claiming values that aren't really yours, something is constantly going to be amiss. Okay, so look at your values, go through your perfect day and ideal day, and make sure they are present. And if they're not, that's some additional homework, is to look into that. Why don't those line up? All right, why don't those line up? Okay, so something to think about. And as we set your goals, you want those, it's really important that they line up. So this is another suggestion slide. You could take a screenshot of it if you like the idea of this exercise. I'm not going to make y'all go through this because I want to make today your goals to set 1 to 3 very impactful goals. So we're going to try to keep this within the year range, but I do think it's useful to think about not just the next year, but 10 years, 5 years. In my experience, as I've led these over the years, someone always has trouble with either the 1 year or the 10 year. So I've kind of stopped doing this because it makes people kind of struggle. So instead of telling you what time frame to be thinking your goals in, I want you to decide that. But these are some nice exercises to really think about it. One that I do often, which is super macabre, but I've gotten like really obsessed with it, is thinking about at my funeral, what is everybody saying? I'm a big Steel Magnolias fan. My daughter's name is Magnolia, and the guy that wrote Steel Magnolias, part of why he wrote it was how he observed the women at the funeral. It was written about his sister. I don't think her name was Shelby, but Shelby is based off of his sister who passed. And he wrote about the strength of the women in the room and like how they were at this critical point of death. And so I will literally think of myself as Shelby or as Malin. Sometimes I'm Malin, sometimes I'm Truby, especially because, I mean, God bless Dolly Parton. But I think about like what are they saying about me around the potato salad? And he talks about how at his sister's funeral, that everybody's like true colors didn't show up at the funeral. They show up around the potato salad. Like, what is everybody saying about that person? How's everybody behaving? Are people showing up for that person? So it's a great exercise to think what kind of impact you want to leave on the world and on the people in your life and how you want to live your life. Again, super macabre, but it doesn't bother me. You could write out your eulogy. What do you want to have said at your funeral? What do you want to have said on your what is it called? Tombstone? What do you want that lasting impression to be? So these again are just things that you could consider as you're thinking about goals. Because let's say like, you know, I've got a lot of gardening and farming goals right now. My father-in-law who's 84, which also he sounds like Count Chocula. I'll try to do my best impression of him. He's from Yugoslavia. So his thick Serbian accent and the lips like this, ha, ha, ha. And he, for a very long time, he had this magnificent garden. It was part of what we bonded over. He's now to the point where he's not able to care for it. And it's something that like he doesn't even think about. It's not a goal for him, but it is a lasting legacy of him to me. Even though he's never going to touch a garden tool again, probably he's not interested. That phase of his life was so impactful on my life. I will talk about that at the potato salad when he passes 400 years from now, because he's going to live forever. You know, so your goals also don't have to be things that are forever. They might just be phases in your life, and that's okay too. I think sometimes we think it's got to be this thing that I do forever, right? Like we have chapters. So just some things to think about, like maybe you even write out your goals in chapters if you want to think about the long game, like who am I at the end of my life, and then scale it back. You could even write out like chapters of your life. This is the, you know, this is the chapter I got really into 18 wheelers, and this is the chapter I built model trains, whatever. Okay, so the thing that we've all come here to do, goal setting. So I want you to suspend reality for a moment that 2020 wasn't an absolute dumpster fire. And I want you to think about, you know, your perfect day, your ideal day. I want you to place yourself on January 1st, 2022. So a year from this coming January 1st. I want you to imagine if you could have it all, if you could have your best year ever in the context of not using the phrase, if I blank, then I will be happy. So super important. If you could have the best year ever, living fully, living wholly without trying to fix yourself or get to this one peak pinnacle of joy, but instead live fully. Hopefully that's coming across. What would that look like? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to think on that. And you might just sit there and sip your coffee and think, okay, what do I really want? You might make a list. You might write another narrative out. This is really personal on how that is going to translate. Some years I've drawn a picture and I've drawn everything I could imagine that it looked like a third grader did it, but everything that I could imagine would be that year. You know, I drew like a little set for like the vacation I took and like the books I was going to read. So it can be anything. There's no right way to do this. At the top of the page that you do this on, though, I want you to write January 1st, 2022. And then just go. We have 5 minutes. Just dream about it. And continue to notice when limiting beliefs start to filter in. And there's a difference between limiting beliefs and honesty. Like if you draw in there a spaceship, like I'm going to be an astronaut by January 1st, 2022, but you've never, you know, done anything related to that subject. That's not being honest. It's not liberating truth. It's not being honest. Now you might do that in like 10 years. about 2 more minutes. Write out those goals. All right, about 45 more seconds. We're going to talk about how to actually format these cuties. False, false. Okay, so you should also see on your handout a reprieve of, hopefully I did that right, a reprieve of the things, experiences, and being. And this is just another way for you to start to get this into concise language. So you're going to look at your whatever you drew, whatever you wrote, and you're going to start to break that down into, okay, is it a thing that I want to acquire? Do I want to get a baby grand? I would just love to play the piano every day. And so maybe one of the first steps is I need to buy a piano. So maybe that's a thing that you're trying to acquire. An experience could be like piano lessons. And then a being is I am a piano player. I am a recreational piano player or concert pianist, whatever. So that's one way that I found really helpful to start to list out clearly what I want, is looking at my little dream weave of what does my perfect year look like, and then pulling out, okay, what I'm really saying here is I want to read 50 books. Is that an experience? Is that a thing? Is that a way of being? One thing in the way of being that I found really helpful is writing I am statements. So my goal board for 2021 into 2022 is a lot about, like I said, gardening. So my state of being is I am a gardener. And that is what I've written on the I am being side. Like I want people to know that about me. I am an urban gardener. So then like things, I need a wheelbarrow. Mine broke last season. So that's a thing that I literally have to get to make this more effective. Experiences, I learn how to start seeds more efficiently. So those kinds of things, as you look at your dream or your vision of what you want to have happen in the year, start to make realistic actions and list them out in that things, experience, and being exercise. I find that very helpful. So I'm going to keep going. You can write as I talk. So there are 2 types of goals. There's a habit goal and there's an achievement goal. They can go together. They can be completely unrelated. A habit goal is something that we do, in a frequency sort of way. So example, if you're noticing in your vision that you're like doing a lot of running or fitness or whatever, it's setting a goal that's like, I run Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday for 1 hour for 12 weeks at 1 p.m. each day. Or an achievement goal would be, I run the Chicago Marathon by X date. Does this make sense? So one is something that you're doing in frequency. One is something that you are doing to achieve a state or achieve something. And are they like, sometimes they can be achievement based to achieve an achievement. So Maybe if my goal is to become a social ecologist is my like 5-10 year goal, then I might need to become an environmental scientist first. So the first 4 years is focusing on getting my environmental science degree. And then the 5th year or 6th year is focusing on getting my master's or whatever I need for my social ecology degree. So you can start to build in achievement goals that lead to other achievement goals. Or the example I gave above, I run, 5 times a week for this amount of time, because ultimately it's going to lead me to the Chicago Marathon. You can have a habit goal that goes to an achievement goal. You can also just have goals that have nothing to do with other things. So different ways to think about it. I break my goals down by quarter. So this is why we're doing this in a year, but you can, again, like accordion this out into whatever time frame you want. But I'm going to start at Q4, which I'm assuming quarters, everybody does this differently, is like the seasons. December, November, October of 2021 would be Q4. So I am going to start all the way there, and I'm going to set my major end of year goals there. So whatever the culmination point is going to be there. So let's take my reading goal. My reading achievement goal is I will read 50 books by January 1st, 2022. So I'm going to write that goal in Q4. December 15th, 2021, I have read 49 books. Does this make sense? And then in Q3, which I'm thinking is October, September, August, I'm going to write a goal that gets me there, right? So I have read 40 books or, whatever by October 1st, 2021. I'm going to keep going back. And so again, it could be an achievement to get to an achievement. It could be a habit goal. Maybe my Q1 goal is I actually did the math. This is how much of a nerd I am. In order to read all 50 books, which I've already made a list of, and then I wrote out how many page numbers there are, I need to read 25 to 40 pages every single day. So that might be my habit goal. For Q1, I read 40 pages a day. Bananas. I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to love doing it. I'm going to love trying, and I'm going to love failing so hard. Okay, so that's habits versus achievement. When you want to use as a habit, let's see. You can use, I've already said this. You can use a habit as a step. You can use a habit just as a habit. I'm going to move on. That one's just reiterating over and over and over again. Okay, I see you, but I want to go back. All right. So general format when we're writing out goals, we use the SMARTer format, which most people have heard of SMART goals. I've tacked on from, I think, Michael Hyatt added these. He's a goal setter who's great to follow, by the way. So SMARTer goals: specific, measurable, affirmative, risky, time sensitive, exciting, and relevant. So specific, it must be clear. So I run sometimes would be a non-specific goal, right? I run 3 days a week. That's specific. Measurable, can you quantify it? Can you say I did it or I didn't? So for a long time, post body image problem days or post anorexia, I had a goal to love my body. Well, that's not quantifiable. But what is quantifiable is I know how I feel when I'm at my best. I'm exercising 5 times a week. I'm drinking enough water. I'm getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep. I am engaging in healthy friendships, healthy relationships. So I can quantify those things, which I know equals, loving myself. And if it doesn't, then something's missing, and I can set goals around that. Not like I love myself, it depends on the day and how the wind blows, honestly. So it must be specific and it must be measurable, and so that you can say yes or no, I did that. Affirmative. Instead of writing, I don't smoke anymore, you want to put it in the positive. I am a non-smoker, or I am smoke free. If you say like, I don't do something, you trick your brain into wanting to do it. It's just reverse psychology. So you want to put it in the positive or the affirmative, so you don't trick yourself. Risky, it needs to have an element of risk. 50 books, I've never read 50 books. That's risky. I have 2 kids under 6. It's risky to even have a book and assume it's not going to turn into a coloring book. So it's risky, but it's exciting, which we'll get to, and it keeps me on my toes. So you want things that keep you on your toes. Time sensitive, you have to put a timestamp on it. It can be super arbitrary, doesn't matter. What it's going to do is go into your Google Calendar or your paper planner, and it's going to be a reminder. It's not an end date, it's a reminder. So you always have to put a timestamp on it so you can check in with you. Exciting. If it's not exciting, you're not going to do it. My husband and I laugh at this every year, but I always put financial goals on mine, and I hate money. I don't care for money. I don't really get it. It's not exciting to me. I fail money goals every year, and then we laugh, at how broke I am, or like what bad decisions I made with my credit card. And then I try again, and it's just not going to work because I'm not excited about it. But recently I switched it from money related to like what I get when I do the money goals. So if I save enough money to do a training that I want to go to, I nail those goals every time because I'm excited about the training. I don't about how much money I make or whatever. It's just not interesting to me. So make sure it's exciting to you and put it in language that's exciting to you, not exciting to somebody else. And then relevant. I mentioned this earlier, but if it's like, I'm going to be an astronaut by next year, but you've never been to astronaut school, I don't know what that is, whatever school that is you go to, that's not relevant to your context. And so you're setting yourself up to fail. So if I were to put myself down as a social ecologist in a year, I don't have that context yet. So it's just not fair to me. But 4 to 5, 6 years, absolutely relevant, possible to do. Okay. So achievement-based format. So now while I talk, you can start to write your goals out if you haven't already, but here's some more things to think. So this is on your sheet. So the goal, you always want to know the why. So pulling everything in from before. What's behind it? Is this a complaint you've had for years? So if your goal is to read 50 books, let's take that one. If your goal is to read 50 books, and the reason is because you've always felt, your story has always been, I'm stupid or whatever. The why behind it is to prove to myself that I'm smart, or to engage constantly in behavior that I think smart people do, right? It's something, that's my why. So getting clear about why you're doing it and looking at your past to inform that, super important. The cost. What happens if you don't do it? Are you going to feel disappointed in yourself? Is there anyone counting on you? All those things are going to help inform the intensity of the importance of why you do something, right? If I don't read 50 books, I'm the only person that's going to be disappointed in me, but I'm my worst nightmare. So I will be very disappointed and I will be very hard on myself. So the cost is something to consider. The reward, what are you going to do when you do achieve it? This year, when I achieved my reading goal, I gave myself $100 to go buy more books. And it was really a joyful moment. So what are you going to do to reward yourself for doing that thing? There are categories at the beginning or the top of your page. Good Lord. And you can, for each achievement goal you set, you can circle the category that they are relevant to if you're someone that likes to categorize things. I know I do. So something to consider. I would be careful to set more than 3 to 5 goals per quarter and more than like 3 major goals you're trying to get to, because you're not going to remember all that. So you want to keep it narrow enough that you remember what you're actually trying to do. And remember, Sheryl Sandberg said something super brilliant, which is you can do it all, just not all at once. That maybe right now you need to prioritize these 3 goals, and then next year, the next 3 goals. Like, give yourself some grace that you have time, you will get to them, but just maybe not right now. Okay, I didn't keep that. All right, so habit goal format, you want to include in that your frequency and how you're going to keep track. I absolutely live and die by this app. It's called Streaks. Looks like this. You can change the colors and everything. It's got on there all the habits that I'm upkeeping. You can have multiple pages. Don't recommend because you get lost. But it's called Streaks. I love it. I use it all the time. And it just helps you maintain streaks of habits. Again, you want to know the why of the habit, like what is propelling, what is motivating you to continue to do this, especially in the fitness industry. I do see people make some pretty unhealthy choices when it comes to habits. So really get clear on your why. What's the cost? Is your health at risk? Is this going to put anybody else at risk? Is there no risk? And what's the reward? What are you going to do when you achieve that goal or when you keep up with the consistency of that thing? Remember too, the reward might be that you just feel good. You're just living in your purpose. I've recently started playing the guitar. I have no goals to be good at it or to impress anybody, but I just love it. So the reward is getting to sit down and practice. Okay. So now we're going to break that down into daily habits and rituals. So this might be part 3. I think I mentioned 2 homework assignments. Part 3 is you're probably going to need to sit with all this and refine. And once you really get that down, you want to distill that into daily habits and rituals. So, okay, if my goal is to read 50 books by December 31st or January 1st, 2022, then my goals are probably, a different achievement goal for how many books I've read in Q3, Q2. Q1 is probably establishing the rhythm of reading 25 to 40 pages a night. So further, I'm going to have to figure out, well, what does that look like? That means I can't watch TV at night is what that means. Because if I want to sit down and read 25 to 40 pages, depending on the book, it's going to take an hour to 2 hours. I'm a slow reader. So I need to set aside 2 hours every single night to read. So then it's breaking down all of the rituals that go with that. Okay, well, if I got to do that, that means I go to bed probably around 10. So we're starting reading at 8 o'clock. So that means I got to get my kids in bed by 7:45. So that means I've got to make dinner by 6:30. So I start to really think about my whole day and how it is affected by those things. And I'll be honest, as I tell you this right now, that doesn't feel great. So as I start to break down like how I will ritualize my goals, I'm realizing maybe 40 pages a day is not real. Maybe I need to look at Saturdays are the day I read 100 pages and Monday through Friday are the days I read 25. I don't know the math on that. Does this make sense? So you're starting to like figure out, well, how does this actually fit in my everyday life? Another thing could be, I doubt any of you are looking for a job because this is pretty swell, but for the only thing I can think of is job searching. I have a lot of people come to me doing that in goal setting, and dating is another one. And something I tell them is like, okay, if the goal is to get a new job, well, then you need to put rituals and habits in place of applying for jobs. Like you need to schedule that in your day. How often are you applying for a job? How many are you applying to? That kind of thing. So considering the processes around your goals are going to help you get clear on how to start to go after them. Jim Collins and Brian Tracy, 2 very popular business, moguls and goal setters. Their challenge is, can you be 10% better every day? I don't know if I always agree with that, but what does 10% mean? Maybe it's getting up 1 minute earlier. Maybe it's reading 1 page more, 1 sentence more. Another thing to consider is don't forget to leave room for space. This is not about maximizing that one goal that will make you happy and then dropping back down into a sinkhole. So can you consider also where you need to give yourself breaks? If that's maybe taking vacation, that's what vacation is for. If that's every day having a 30-minute period, my kids go to school near a park. So I've built into 2 days a week where I'll drive early to school and I'll wait in the parking lot and read a book and just enjoy myself instead of like constantly pursuing things. Although I do have a goal for reading, I just love to read. So starting to think about how you can ritualize your goals and make them a part of your everyday and a wholesome part of your day, something that is worth the energy and time and doesn't feel like a total drag on your energy. And then write them down, put them in your calendar. What's on your to-do and your to-don't list? This is also in your handbook, your handbook, your handouts. If you're going to be setting your gym shoes out the night before and getting your gym bag ready, let's say if you've got a fitness goal, maybe your to-don't do list is like eating that bag of pretzels. Maybe, you know, every time you eat that bag of pretzels, you can't wake up and go to the gym. So your to-don't do would be eat the bag of pretzels. Your to-do is put your gym shoes out, get your bag ready. You cannot do it all. So in pursuing a whole life, there are things that have to go. And again, I mentioned earlier, like TV, I love TV. But I've gotten really clear that that's a thing that often derails me. So I have to either reward myself with TV or I have to put TV on a certain day. It just depends. Does the to-don't do list make us focus on that and end up doing it? That's a good point. I think that's why you've got to do them side by side. You've got to know, what do I need to do so I don't do this? So I think if you just have a to-don't do list, yes, I think it could psychologically make you do those things. But the question, it's actually a really great question. The question I would ask yourself, excuse me, once you have your to-do and your to-don't is when you come up against that crossroad, because you're going to, let's say I'm about to watch American Housewife or decide if I'm going to watch if I'm going to read 20 pages. I'm going to ask myself, do I want X more than I want Y? Do I want to finish the year with 50 books more than I want to have this small moment of joy? Like, which one do I want to choose? Or do I want to sacrifice this day of reading to having a Saturday reading marathon? So when you put it in the context of, do I want X more than I want Y? It just helps you reframe, okay, what do I really want in this moment? And sometimes you want to sit down and watch the show, and it's okay. Great question. Okay, and then we've mentioned this earlier, but mantras, which to be clear on the appropriation of things, mantra is a Sanskrit term that means specifically Sanskrit. So I need to change that. But mantra is what most people think of when they think of an affirmation. That's why I'm using that word there. Really in English, it's just an affirmation. So what is the thing that's going to keep you on track? For me, it's listing out what I am, staying in the positive. I am a reader. I am a gardener. I am a yogi. I am whatever that hyphen list that we're going back to at the very beginning. Who are all those things? Especially parenting. I don't have a ton of goals around parenting. But it's important to me to be a good mother. And I have the story that I'm a bad mother because social media likes to feed us that. So that's something I repeat often is I am a good mother. And it then helps me make choices that a good mother would make. You know, instead of like freaking out on them, a 2.5-year-old for leaving his socks in the middle of the floor. If I say to myself, I'm a good mother, then I really think about like, really, do you really want to yell at him for that? Because that feels like a you problem, not a Langston problem. So having these affirmations can help just affirm either your goals or any state of being that maybe isn't something you write in your goal, but just a general way that you want to maintain. I mentioned this earlier, but legacy, you know, this all kind of, you remember those like balls that like expand and contract. They're like, they look like they're made out of connects and you can like yo-yo them in and out. Your legacy affects your goals affects your legacy. So you might even think about if you're stuck on any one particular goal and you're like, I'm not really sure what that means or like how to write that out. You can write it from a place of fear. What are you afraid of? So everybody's afraid of some level of dying, whether that's not completing things or the actual fear of the pain of death or whatever. You can go that far. You can say, okay, what do I want to make sure before I die? Because everybody goes out that way. I want to achieve in my life. Maybe it's like a fear of losing your job. You know, okay, if that's my greatest fear, like what do I need to set goals around in order for that not to just freeze me in my life? So one way to think about if you're stuck on anything, your goals is like, okay, well then what are you afraid of? And maybe set goals from that place. So some homework, more homework considerations. I want to be mindful of your time is writing out a daily schedule. So from the habits and rituals, maybe like me, you write out 9 a.m. Here's what I do, 10 a.m. Here's what I do. Make a vision board. If you just Pinterest vision board, you will be barfed on with ideas. I certainly have a billion of them. Love them. I put them where I can see them every day. That 2020 that got a little assaulting, but I keep them in my kitchen so I can see like what I really am after in the world. Remember that you can start now and start slow. I had so many goals that didn't happen this year, but that doesn't mean they can't be achieved. It just means maybe it wasn't the right time frame. So going back to that timestamp thing, put your goals on your calendar, not as like a point of shame, but as a point to check in with yourself. How did that go? Did I achieve it? Okay, I didn't. Why didn't I achieve it? Do I really want it? Is it aligned with my values or is it somebody else's? Oh God. And that's it. Are there any questions? This is us in Thailand. It was so fun. Remember traveling? No, I don't either. Any questions about how to goal set? Any goals you want to share? Anything that came up that you thought like, yes, this is it? Anything that's inspiring you, exciting you?
I'll share two of mine. I would love to hear some other people share, but my two for this next year are I would like to save $10,000 this year. And then I really want to be able to do a pull-up at the end of the year. So
I know a girl who can help you with that.
yes, please.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anyone else feel like they want to share? Don't feel like you have to, but I would love to know what you're thinking about.
I'll share my goals. Well, two of them at least. One of them is I want to sleep 7 to 8 hours a night, which I know.
Gigi, yes, I'm so proud of you.
I was just sharing earlier today my unhealthy sleeping schedule with Rosie. So I think that if I could get that, would be very helpful. And then I too want to read a lot more this year, which is funny because I can relate to you in that. So I would like to read like 10 pages a night of a book. That would be very helpful, and not be on my social media and just be reading. Yeah. Those
are so great. Also, Peaches, I love her too. So send her my regards. I love the sleep goal and the reading goal. So good. So good. Thank you.
Anyone else feel motivated to share? Again, not trying to pressure you. Just love to know what's going on in your life. Heard.
I think Silva has 12 arms. Sorry, I was just watching the full octopus. That is your impressive skills. You're just like, nope, can't have that. Yes, can have this. Here, give me that. That was amazing. Amazing.
My goal that I actually started in November and it's going pretty well is that I'm trying to walk 2 miles 5 days a week. So I built it into our day where I try to walk the girls to school, which is about a little more than a mile each way. What I really like about it is if I fall short of the walking and I'm like, I can't do it today, it's like too cold. Biking in comparison to walking sounds really fast and easy. So I either walk or bike them. But if I do it every day for the whole year, that'll be actually 500 miles walked in a year. So that would be a cool achievement to have if I keep this up in 2021. So that's what I've got going over here.
That's awesome. I wonder if I put this on the slide, but I probably didn't. One thing you can do is a little hack also is to write out 168, which is the number of hours in a week, and then break down, okay, if your goal is to, sleep 7 hours, well, what does that take out of your week? And then if you want to read 10 pages a night, what does that take out of your week? And so you can start to factor it in from a timetable basis. And I do that monthly with my business, with everything. And it really does help me be like, okay, I do not have time for that, but I do have time for this. Cool. Well, what I'm going to do is stop the recording. Thank you if anyone watched this. I'm impressed.